With the 2020 election just around the corner, I want to answer the question that you may have, which is, should I sell my stocks before the election? Now in this video, I'm going to answer that, and I'm also going to share with you what I'm personally doing with my stock portfolio and my positions. So I'm confident that you're going to get a ton of value out of this video, and if you do, all I ask in return is to hit that like button down below for the YouTube AI. Now, while it does take time and effort to, figure out when you want to buy a stock, what stock you want to buy, and all that stuff, I would personally argue that it's actually a lot tougher to decide when to sell a stock. Selling, at least for me, it requires a lot more time, a lot more analysis, and there's a lot more factors to consider, because if you pick a winning stock and you're actually fortunate enough to see a lot of unrealized gains on it, naturally you're going to start wanting to take some profits, but then that hard decision comes up. When do I sell? Now, the reason I think a lot of investors struggle with the selling aspect of stocks is because of three main things: emotions that come into play, the news outlet and the media, and world events that are happening right now. Unfortunately, when I see investors act on these three things, it typically leads to them selling a position, yeah, but usually at an unfortunate loss. When you own a stock, when you buy a stock, you're actually buying a piece of a company, an underlying business that does something, a service, a product, whatever it is, and they provide some value, and that's what you're investing in. Now, if you open up your favorite stock app and you look at that stock ticker symbol and you see it's down 50%, does that mean the company is now all of a sudden a bad investment? Maybe the fundamentals changed. However, a lot of times it's just because of these other factors, news, world events, or emotions that come into play, which result in stocks acting this volatile. Unfortunately though, guys, the reality of the situation is that a lot of investors do suffer this, that they sell out at a loss, they realize those losses, and most of them will probably never come back to the stock market and say, hey, I don't invest in stocks anymore, that thing is such a scam. And that's really unfortunate because there's a ton of opportunity in the stock market. You have patience, you kind of understand the psychological part of the stock market. There's a ton of opportunity for anyone. There's no restrictions on who can invest, how much money you need to invest, and all that stuff. So it really saddens me to see when investors say, oh yeah, the stock market, that's not for me, I don't want to bother with that, because it's just a wasted opportunity at the end of the day. The most common phrase I also hear is that the stock market is rigged, and that's why I don't want to invest in it. Guys, reality, yes, the stock market, I think at least, is rigged. However, if you realize that, that's when you can actually benefit from all of this. The media, like I said, plays a huge role in influencing and rigging the stock market. And even the most savvy investors, if you're watching these media outlets, you're going to get sucked into all of this and think twice about your investments. News outlets can be extremely dangerous, arguably the most dangerous thing, especially for beginner investors. So if that's you right now, you want to listen up, because what they do is they try to focus on the now. As an investor, at least one that's part of this channel, you should not be focusing on the now. You should be focusing on the future. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years out, that is where you want to focus on. It doesn't matter what happens today. It doesn't matter what happens tomorrow. You want to be confident the businesses that you're investing in, you're putting your hard-earned money into, actually will be around in 5 years, 10 years, and be much bigger, stronger, better businesses than they are today. The honest truth, whether you want to hear it or not, is that if you listen to the media outlets, you listen to your favorite news source, more likely than not, you're going to end up with losses because they focus on the now, they focus on events that catch a lot of headlines, a lot of eyes, and a lot of times that's driven by fear. And this also kind of ties us to the third thing which I mentioned, which is world events, and in this case particularly the elections. Now, before we talk about the elections, I first want to focus on a world event that happened back in March 2020. In the span of just 1 month, the stock market had dropped over 35%, and this was just the broader market, the S&P 500. Many individual stocks had actually dropped much more than this, 50%, 60%, 70%, or even more. Why was this? Well, the media was focused on the current world event, the global issue, and all you heard anywhere that you went, any news source, TV, websites, YouTube, anywhere you went, was pretty much focused on how you need to sell your stocks ASAP. The reason? Well, we were headed into a depression supposedly, and it's better to get out as soon as you can instead of keeping your money tied up and potentially being down even more in your positions. But guess what actually ended up happening? The market bottomed out and we started a fairly sharp recovery, and now today we sit at prices higher than we were at before the crash in March. It took a few months to recover the losses. We definitely came back much slower than we dropped down, but hey, we did recover and we are now stronger than ever before. Unfortunately though, those that listen to the media, that fell trapped to the media, that were rigged by the media, are still sitting on the sidelines, still waiting for the opportunity to buy back in because, hey, there may be a second dip, another crash, and that's when they can get back into the market. In my opinion, I think that's very unlikely that we're going to see those same lows once again. We could see another correction as volatility picks up, but hey, that's all speculation. But I can guarantee you this, a lot of these people that sold out at the time, near the March lows, they're looking at the stock market right now and they're thinking, why did I sell out? I'd be up so much on my positions. I would have made so much money. I wish I stayed invested. That was a huge mistake. And yeah, hindsight is 2020. At the time, the news media, all that stuff circulating around, that really took over, and unfortunately a lot of people fell trapped to that. And that kind of brings me to the main topic of this video, which is the elections, the 2020 elections, and how that really affects the stock market and possibly what you may do with your stocks in the stock market. The elections, just like any other global event like what we saw in March, brings the three main things that the market hates: fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD, as the cool kids like to call it. And whenever there's FUD out there, there's volatility that picks up, and you could result in something like a stock market crash. And because of this FUD, these thoughts start creeping into investors' minds. Should I just sell out of my positions now, wait for the election to pass, and then buy back in? Or maybe what I could just do is just sell my stocks today and then wait for the end of the year. Typically we have the Santa Claus rally and all that stuff. So I'll buy back in then and then make more profits back. That sounds like a good strategy. Now to this, I would say, in my humble opinion, that's not what you want to do. If you are considering selling your positions now and buying back into those same positions after the election has passed, ask yourself this question: how do you know that stock prices are going to be lower than they are today? Ask yourself the question, what if prices are higher after the election than they are today? Would you still be willing to pay a higher price tag for those same stocks that you sold out of today before the election? And really what I'm trying to get at is ask yourself the question, can you time the market? The sad reality is most investors will not ask themselves these questions. Most investors will kind of ignore the fact that timing the market is impossible, and they will still move on with their strategy. They will still move on with selling before the election, hoping stock prices go down, and then buying after the election. But guys, if it was that easy, everyone would be millionaires, right? But hey, I gotta play devil's advocate for a second. Could you be absolutely correct in selling your positions today, waiting for the election to pass, and then buying back in at possibly lower prices? Absolutely, you could be absolutely dead on correct. But what I'm trying to get at is that it's impossible to predict that. No one knows what's going to happen after the election. No one is able to make these predictions on where the stock price is going to be in a month from now. So why bother trying? Why waste your time trying to figure out if a stock that you love is going to be a few percent higher or lower a month from now? All I'll say is this: the chances of the market roaring higher after the elections is just as likely as the market correcting after the elections. It's a 50-50 chance. Stocks go up or stocks go down. That's pretty much the only two possibilities. Yeah, I guess it could go sideways. But, simplify things, up or down. Those are the two directions the stocks move. And if it was so easy to predict it, everyone would be rich. So just keep that in mind. Now let me quickly share what I'll personally be doing with my positions in the market. So I have quite a few positions, quite a bit of money invested in the stock market, and I won't be changing any of that before, through, or after the elections. I'll be holding on to my positions. I have a good cash buffer of around 20-25% or so. And if I see volatility pick up and I see my favorite companies go on sale and their stock prices go down because of the uncertainty around the election, I will be buying in. This is something called dollar cost averaging. It's a very popular strategy, and this is something that I've employed over the years and something that I employed heavily through the March 2020 crash. Now, if you're part of my VIP group, you know that's panned out very well for us. The stocks there have done incredibly well from the March lows and that recovery. And because we stayed invested through those tough times, we are rewarded with some pretty handsome gains and cost bases that we're probably not going to see in a lot of these companies ever again. So all I'm going to do is just stay put, do my thing, ignore the media, ignore the articles out there on the elections, all that kind of stuff. Regardless of who wins, if I see an opportunity, I'll buy more shares. If I don't, stocks start moving higher, great, I'll just hold on to my positions and wait for a future opportunity, a future world event that'll come up at some point and cause more volatility, more FUD, and potentially more buying opportunities. So guys, regardless of what you decide to do, whether you decide to sell off now, wait, buy back in later, or dollar cost average like what I'm doing, just have a plan in place and stick to that strategy. Don't let fears, don't let emotions take over, because it's very easy to get tied up in the media and make poor investment decisions, which can cost you a lot over the long term. Remember the famous saying, time in the market beats timing in the market. Yeah, I truly do believe that, and I truly do believe you will be successful over the long term if you stick with that simple strategy. Either way guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.